What's Adventure? Welcome back to week number 2 of our Exodus series. So glad that you're able to join us. Hopefully you're sitting right here on our church campus, able to enjoy this with your friends sitting around you. If you're sitting at home watching on YouTube, thanks for joining in and being a part of what's going on through this Exodus series. What we started off at last week was Exodus has these themes, has the people of Israel, God's people, going from bondage and really coming to a place where they find freedom and the presence of God. And as I look into our situation right here, I mean, even apart from the pandemic, just where high schoolers frequently find themselves, these themes of bondage to freedom and finding God's presence are so important for us. And really, as we retrace the steps of the Jews, the Israelites, God's people, we see that there's the same steps that we need to take as well. Last week, step number 1. And really, if you're new to the whole Christianity thing, and you're thinking, what is my first step to take with God? Man, go back last week. The first step that we saw in Exodus, and the first step that anybody who is considering Christianity needs to realize, is that God cares about you. That's the good news of the gospel, that Jesus cares about us, that he loves us. Where we're going to go is forward a few chapters into Exodus chapter 3. And we're going to be looking at a super popular portion of the Exodus story, the burning bush. I don't know if my childhood was regular or not, but I've had multiple times where I've come upon burning trees. And you might think that I'm being fictitious. I'm not. I'm not exaggerating here. My older brother set a banana tree on fire. Those things are really full of moisture. It was kind of hard to do, but Anthony did it. I was part of setting grandma's tree on fire. But the story that I want to tell for the burning bush was, I think it was 4th of July or something. We had a bunch of sparklers at our house, and we had one of those something like pine tree or something, where it's only the exterior that's green, and then right on the inside, everything's just dead and dry, and it's just an explosion waiting to happen. And so we have the whole family out there. My 2 little sisters are they're probably I don't know, 3 years old and 7 years old or something like that, and we're handing them sprinkles, but hey, run around the yard, have fun. And somebody wasn't paying attention, took that last little bit of sparkler, whatever it is, and throws it into the tree. And I kid you not, this whole tree just explodes into flame. And I have no idea how she knew that the tree was on fire. But Mom comes flying out of the sliding glass window with a blanket in hand and just jumps onto the bush and wrestles the fire out of existence. And she's like, guys, I told you not to be playing with those sparklers. And this is that moment that I realized every burning bush, every burning tree, there's a lesson there. There's something for us to learn. This one was, hey, don't be playing with your fireworks right next to a tree that's ready to explode into flames. The lesson that we're going to learn from the burning bush in Exodus is a little bit different, but it's a lesson that I think is so important for us. Here it is. God speaks when we pay attention. And so if you don't hear anything else, that's what I want you to hear tonight. God speaks when we pay attention. Check it out in Exodus chapter 3. Verse number 1 says, Now Moses was keeping the flock of his father-in-law Jethro, the priest of Midian, and he led the flock to the west side of the wilderness, and he came to Horeb, the mountain of God. The angel of the Lord appeared to him in the flame of fire out of the midst of the bush. Check this out. He looked, and behold, the bush was burning, yet it was not consumed. And Moses said, check this out, I will turn aside to see this great sight, why the bush is not burned. Verse number 4. When the Lord saw that he turned aside to see, God called him out of the bush, Moses, Moses. And he said, Here I am. Then he said, "Do not come near. Take the sandals off of your feet, for the place where you are standing is holy ground." God's people are in bondage, and they need to be set free. And God is going to start that work of providing deliverance and bringing his people into freedom in his presence. But here's the place where God starts. He starts looking for somebody who will pay attention. And so Moses is walking around and he sees a bush burning. In this desert where Moses was, it wouldn't be uncommon to see like a random fire like this. Storms will come up, they'll spark lightning. We know a little bit about that here in California. And so as a shepherd, it wouldn't be out of the ordinary to see something burning. But Moses stops. He kind of pays attention. And he realizes, hey, that bush is burning, but it's not actually like being consumed. And then he turns aside. He says, hey, I'm going to go check this out. I'm not going to just see what's on the surface. I'm going to go a little bit deeper. I'm going to actually pay attention to this. I'm going to devote a little bit of time and energy and attention to see what's going on here. And in that moment, God says, Moses, Moses. He says, here I am. He says, hey, take your shoes off. This conversation that we're about to have is a special conversation. This ground that you're standing on is holy ground. And this is the beginning of the deliverance that the children of Israel and Moses himself needs so desperately. And I just wonder, I know for me, like I long for these moments. Like God, speak to me. God, like, do you have a word for me? Is there a place in my life where you're trying to bring me from bondage into freedom? And I'm just waiting, like, God, speak to me. I can't wait for God to be like, Charles. And I'm like, yes, I'm here. But I wonder if sometimes we miss the voice of God because we're not paying attention. And honestly, I think that's a pretty safe bet, right? The average person spends 2.5 hours on their phone between 67 sessions every day. And this is the average person. This includes your grandma that like only picks up her phone once a day, right? For most of the people that are hearing this message right now, that number is significantly higher than the 2.5 hours that are on the national average. Most iPhone users touch their phone 2,617 times a day. And that's not even like accounting for like the phantom touches, you know what I'm talking about? Where like you're checking your pocket for your phone even when your phone's not there. And our world is just so full of things that are screaming out for our attention. There's this guy named Bernie Krause. Bernie Krause used to record nature sounds. In 1968, in order to get 1 hour of uninterrupted nature sounds, right? So like trees, rustling in the wind, birds chirping and whatnot. It would take, let me get it here, 15 hours of recording. Today, 1 hour of sound without man-made interruption takes 2,000 hours to record. That we're just being pulled in every which direction with things screaming for our attention, with algorithms that are specifically tailored to you and to me to like steal our attention through our devices. In the year 2000, which was like so long ago, a whole of 20 years, the average attention span was 12 seconds. Today, it's 8 seconds. In 20 years, we've lost the ability to focus like 4 seconds, which is a huge deal. In contrast, goldfish have an attention of 9 seconds. Goldfish. But yet, as human beings created in God's image, I don't care if you're a freshman or a senior, you have a longing in your heart to hear from God. And I wonder if we're not hearing from God because we're so distracted. And so here's what I want you to do to address that. With this week, you just realize I've got to I gotta push things out of my life in order to focus on what's important. And honestly, like I just want to be real specific. There's a million and one ways to hear from God. Here's the 3 ways that are most powerful in my life. 1, I read the scriptures. 2, I listen to sermons. And 3, I listen to Christian music. And in order to do these things, in order to hear the voice of God through the Bible, through preaching, through worship music, it takes some discipline to push other things out of my life in order to allow God to speak. Would you take that discipline this week seriously? Would you consider grabbing one of these things? It's our Exodus reading plan for this week. And just say like, hey, this week I'm hopping in. I'm going to read through the story portions of the book of Exodus. I've even chopped out some of the stuff that you don't necessarily need to know about how the temple was built exactly, but you need to know this story. Man, would this week you say like, hey, I'm just going to, instead of listening to all of the songs that I'm currently listening to on Spotify, man, I'm going to take time to, on a daily basis, start my day off with worship. If you need some sermon recommendations, man, let me know. I have so many sermons that I would love to send your way and just say, hey, check out this podcast, listen to this person. But would you take the time to realize that at the core of your being, because you were made by God, you are designed to need that connection with Him? And because so many of us have one of these bad boys in our pockets, we're literally being distracted to death, not able to hear the message from God. And this week, would you just say, no, I'm going to pay attention, because when I pay attention, God speaks.